Hello. Today, throughout this lecture, I'm going to explain to you how to configure IP default static routes. Okay, a default route is a static route. Should define it as a static IP route by using the command IP route that match all packets. What does it mean this? A single default route represents any network that's not in the routing table. Remember, in previous lectures, we were talking about the longest match or the maximum match. So if we want to know that uh, a, a destination address can be routed by some router, we find the routing table. We take this destination IP address and we check this address with the entries within the routing table, and we check some code, we call it long match. So the good path should have the largest number of bits that match. So if it's the case, it can be forward this IP address or this path, right? So now a single default route represents any network that's not in the routing table. It's not in the routing table. So routers commonly use default routes that are either configured locally, you add them, you configure them, these default routes, or they learned from another router using router advertisements, or that makes your routing table updated with this information. So the default route is used as the gateway of last resort. What does this mean, gateway of the last resort? It means that if I don't have any route, I use this default route. يعني هو إذا راوتر استلم باكيتس، هيدي الباكيتس ما لقى ولا destination، وهيدي الراوتر مش منا لإله، بروح بيستخدم الديفولت روت. سو هيدا الجيت اوف لاست ريسورت، يعني اخر ملجأ لإله. الراوتر بيبعت شو؟ بيبعتها خلال الباث اللي هو default route. هيدي it's important to add default routes at the routers. So default static routes are commonly used when connecting an edge network, edge router, to a service provider network or a stub router. What does it mean, a stub router? The definition: stub router is a router with only one upstream neighbor router. A stub router is a router that has only one path to reach other networks. This is stub, or this is stub. Look, this is stub. Why? Because it has only one path to reach all this network. Okay? This network is the stub. Why? Because it has only one link to be reached from this router. Okay? So imagine that if there is another router here, and you have another link to this router and this router to this network or to this router, this becomes not stop, because this is one way and this is another way. So default static routes are commonly used When connected, add edge router to a service provider stop router. Okay. The figure show typical. This is, I explained to you what is stop router. Stop router has only one path to reach other networks. Okay. How to configure now default static route? Easy enough. It's the same as previous, but there's some difference. Simple difference. Default static route, the common static syntax for a IP version for default static route is similar to any other static route configurations, except that the network address is 4 times 0. You don't add any. So the destination network is 4 times 0. And the subnet mask is also 4 times 0. What does this mean, zeros means? It means that we need zero match to route the information. So it means that this default static route accepts any network to any IP address to forward or to route. Why? Because it needs 0. It should be /0 here. /0. So let's continue. Will match, so, and the subnet mask is, so the 4040 in the root will match any network address. Yes, that's correct. Remember before we were searching longest match to check if it can route, but here we have 0 match. So it can match any network. This is why it routes any IP address. So an IP version for default static route is commonly referred to as quad 0 route. Quad 0, it means 4 zeros. The basic command syntax for an IP version for default static route is as follows. IP route as previous. Destination network is 4 times 0. Subnet mask. IP address of next hop. Remember, this is the next hop. And this is the exit interface to reach the next hop IP address. Or, this is or. So IP version 6, it's the same. The command syntax for the default IP version 6 route is similar to any, except that we use prefix, and prefix lengths. Instead of 00, you should just ::/0, which matches all routes. The basic command syntax for an IP version 6 default static route is as follows. IP version 6 route. This to define IP version 6 static address. IP version static route of next hop. Exit interface of router. Here, the example. The example shows an IP address for default static route configured on R1 with the configuration shown in the example. Any packet not matching more specific route entries are forwarded to R2 using this address. Yes, that's correct. Here, as you're defining default route, and remember, this is the default IP address here. Okay? So IP route 0000000 and the destination, the next hop IP address. IP version 6 is the same, exactly the same. Remember. So IP versions 4, we use 8 zeros, 4 by 4. Here we use : :/0. And you put the destination IP version 6 address. This one, 2, and this 2. Okay? It's easy enough. So default, it should be zeros. Remember. Verify a default static route. How to verify? Using the routing table. Show IP route static. you exit this command to see static routes. Command output from R1 displays the contents of the static route on the routing table. Note that the asterisk, this star, next to the route with code as. The asterisk indicate that this is a static route, is a candidate default route, which is why it's selected as the gateway of last resort. As we said, this is the default static route. So if the router doesn't find any route, it should forward throughout this address. Notice that the static default route configuration uses the /0 mask for IP version 4 different default routes. Okay, that's correct. Remember that the IP version for subnet mask in a routing table determines how many bits subnet mask determines how many bits must match between the destination IP address of the packet and the route in the routing table. A /0 mask indicates that none of the bits are required to match, as I said to you, as long as more specific match doesn't exist. The default static route match all packets. Yes, because when we put /0, before, when we were trying to check if this router can forward this destination address, we were looking at /8, /16, /18, and we should find at least an IP address in the routing table with if we were using /18, 18 bits at least should match in order to forward this packet. But if we add /0 here in the address, it means that we need 0 bits match. So it can forward or transfer or transmit or route any address. We don't require zero matchings. Here the example of the gateway of last resort. Gateway is last resort, it means that default route, okay, default static route. Gateway of last resort is this address to network 000, and this is the next hop. Next hop to this network. Before it was gateway not defined. /0 and via this one. IP version